And now it's time for a profile.
Hey.
Right, it's Christmas time, so don't be afraid. We've got one of the greatest players of all time, and we remember him all too well. It's Zinedine Zidane.
Very few players get clapped in, but this is worth it.
Get in. Oh, you've gone past me and you're already in. Okay.
We're clapping already.
Clapping
I
already.
thought for a moment then when you introed him, I thought you were going to say Dave Kitson.
Really?
No.
He was
This is my favourite player
Yeah, I
ever, I think.
Before
He's
you
up
get
there
into
for me.
this, I'm just going to start with Pete for a second. I knew we were going to do Zinedine Zidane.
Did you?
Yeah. So
Who told you?
You did. And so over the weekend, I was watching a lot of Zidane stuff, and I actually got quite emotional about it. I was thinking, do you know what,
Ronaldo sending off stuff.
Ronaldo's the greatest striker I've ever seen, sort of our generation. And Messi's got a big say in it, and will have in the future. But in terms of complete players, Zizou is got to be there.
And in
got to be
terms
there.
of just the joy of watching them, like
Yeah.
you have it with Messi now, you tune in to watch him, and Zidane was the same. Just
It's,
beautiful, a
he's
beautiful
great,
footballer,
and also very quiet and reserved in the old press conference and stuff. And he just had.
But he had a destructive side.
Yeah, he did. We'll come on to that. Let's get this done before I get all teary.
He was born on the 23rd of June 1972.
5 years after the Summer of Love.
72. He could still do a job.
He's what is he now? So he's 39. He'd be brilliant. He'd still be absolutely brilliant. I think anyone
go
can
to
deny
China with an Elka.
There's clips on the internet where he's playing five-a-side against people, and he still plays for Real's Masters.
He plays for the Real Madrid veterans. I would not want to play against them.
No,
Imagine that.
let's see if we can set it up though.
Yeah, that'd be
Did you
brilliant.
see him recently? He played in. He organises charity games with Ronaldo. And
Drogba played as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Hadji was there.
Yeah.
And you see big fat Ronaldo chugging around the park. But Zidane still looks the part.
Of course he does. I remember seeing him even in something like Soccer Aid a little while ago, and he was still just an absolute magician that doesn't look like a man who's retired.
Against Ralph Little.
Robbie Williams. Oh.
Yeah. Wasn't a magician against Paul Lambert, though, was he? Come on to that.
We'll come on to that, yeah.
His parents are Algerian immigrants that moved to France in the 50s. And obviously they had Zinedine in Marseille years later. He couldn't have played for Algeria by the time Algeria kind of cottoned on that he had Algerian parentage, because he'd already played for France. I think there's a little bit of a myth that the Algerian national team manager back in the day sort of said no, he's not good enough or something. Yeah. So he was always a France player, really.
Either way, it's a bit of a stinker for Algeria.
Well, he was born in France, wasn't he? So
yeah, he's played his football.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him or read interviews with him where he said he's French. He feels French anyway. So
yeah, that's it. So he quite incredibly, really, this is in 86-87 season. Michel Platini retired from football, and that was when Zidane was sort of coming into the game with a youth set up at Cannes. So one comes in, one comes in. He had played football in the streets of Marseille, well, in the suburb of Marseille where he'd grown up. And he was playing for youth teams at Cannes, but he would often, even back then, playing for the youth setup at Cannes, he would get frustrated at people kind of kicking him and trying to bully him because he was one of the best players.
Oh, he's always had the right temper on him. Always.
No, people would try and take him out because he was one of the better players, and that would really frustrate him. And they recognised this back then. The academy director at Cannes said that he tried to drum it into Zidane that players will always try any kind of method to beat him because he's so good. And he said, you'll get knocks from now until the end of your career. That's just how it is for players as gifted as you. If you take the law into your own hands, you'll spend life on the sidelines watching everyone else play. Even back then, he tried to put him off it. So quite an odd one for the same reason that the director said that perhaps maybe you should. I think this was a bit of a crafty tactic from the director's point of view, but he said that Zidane maybe clean the changing room to let off some steam. So Zidane was often sort of mopping up after the players when they left and that kind of stuff. But he got into the Cannes first team and helped them finish fourth in the league, which was their highest finish for years and years. And he got a move to Bordeaux in the 92-93 season. So he's now at a bigger club. People in France just starting to get to know him, and he was playing alongside the likes of Lizarazu and Christophe Dugarry. And famously, sorry, James.
No, I was just going, God, that's
Are
brilliant.
you going to talk about Tour of France at Birmingham now?
I was going to say that, of course, infamously, while he was at Bordeaux, a few clubs were interested in him. Premier League powerhouses at the time, Blackburn Rovers. Ray Harford suggested that maybe the club should look at Zidane, and of course, what did Jack Walker say famously? Why do you want Zinedine Zidane when you can have Tim Sherwood?
Yeah.
or Stuart Ripley.
Yeah, as well. So he Bordeaux. That was when he first won his first silverware, actually, which was the Intertoto Cup.
Oh yeah.
But oh my goodness, it would get a lot better.
Well, arguably.
He was a finalist in the UEFA Cup as well. And on the way to the UEFA Cup, he scored a 40-yard lob away to Real Betis, which was like the keeper kicked it out one bounce and down.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And just little moments like that, people beginning to notice.
He scored a lot of absolutely amazing goals.
The absolute smashers were kind of slightly earlier in his career as well. I think, like later on. I mean, apart from the volley and the.
Well, later on, he was just basically beating everyone in the penalty area and going on the keeper and stopping him.
But he was a scorer of great goals.
Yeah.
Kind of more so than a great goal scorer, because he didn't score that many, really, I suppose.
He was pretty.
He had a decent sort
on
of
par
amount,
for a sort of attacking midfielder, but certainly not out of the ordinary.
But the quality of the goals was just sublime.
Yeah.
Every time, it seems.
Well, yeah, the coach at Bordeaux realised this as well. He said one night, amidst the bustle of the dressing room, he started juggling the ball around in the middle of all the chaos, just using his heels. And he said, "I've known skillful players before, but Zizou was different. I could have spent the whole night watching him." That's just in the changing room.
Yeah.
Crying out loud,
Juggling the ball with his heels.
I don't even know where my heel is. Is it in my eye?
Oh dear.
Let's try. Let's find Pete's heel.
It was when he was at Bordeaux that the French realised this is a player we have here, and people were talking him about as being the replacement for Michel Platini, the sort of weighted one. So he played for France at Euro '96, and it was a decent team. They reached the semi-finals, and this is when the wider audience began to notice Zidane as well, a very important player. And after the tournament, he was signed by Juventus in '96, and it's fair to say he went on to bigger and better things from then on in, and I suppose this is the second phase of his career, shall we say. But I think it's safe to say, that Zidane, he wasn't like a teenage sensation, or even in his early 20s, he was kind of
he definitely matured later on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean, he didn't have any hair by his 30s, so I mean, he didn't look young at any point.
He's one of those people who's never been young, like Bruce Forsyth.
Michael Parkinson.
Yeah.
He won his first Serie A, his first attempt with Juventus, and they defended the league a year later. He was in the Juventus side that lost 2 Champions League finals.
Oh, that '97 Champions League final.
Yeah,
Lippi's Juventus lost to Dortmund 3-1. That front six of Juve started that game. They played a diamond midfield with Deschamps at the base. You're having that all day. And Delivio and Jugovic, with Zizou just behind Alan Boksic and Christian Vieri. They still lost.
Yeah, Del Piero came on as well.
Yeah, he did. He came on. And Lambert had him. I know this is Zizou's sort of profile, so we don't want to go too much into it. But Lambert was excellent. Marshalled him. Absolutely marshalled him.
But clearly, he'd just been stuck on him, and he was like, just stick to this man.
But he found time to set up a goal for Riedler as well. He was excellent that game, Paul Lambert. But this isn't the Paul Lambert profile, is it?
No. It isn't. So back at Juventus, he was. Everybody knew him now. He was, a European superstar.
Yeah.
Putting in some great performances for Juventus in the Champions League and all.
And a lovely free kick on him as well.
Yeah.
No, you don't really think of Zidane as a free kick taker, but he scored some absolute beauts.
He's always been in teams where they've had a lot of them.
Especially with Real Madrid. Now, it was at Juventus, perhaps, I'm not too sure what his disciplinary record was like at Bordeaux, but it was at Juventus where we just started to see the one flaw in his game, which was his temperament.
I'm pretty sure he had sharp elbows at Bordeaux as well.
Yeah, well, I would imagine he would do. But he was memorably, infamously sent off against Hamburg in the Champions League for a headbutt.
Yeah.
And
is that the worst? Probably the most sort of famous headbutt of his career, Mark?
But the good thing about that is, it's a character like Wayne Rooney. They're just little sly kicks at the back of somebody's heel. A headbutt, you can't really disguise that. Bash.
Oh yeah, there's no half measures with the man.
Is there any truth in the fact that because he was from? I know he had a stable family life, and his parents always provided for him, and he had a loving family and that sort of thing. But he did live in a quite notorious area of Marseille.
Oh yeah,
so he probably had to be quite tough. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's probably true.
He was from the rough streets.
Well, he played a lot of football as well, so this is where he will have been getting kicked about. This is where his temper temper will have been sort of kind of forged almost, because even playing football, people would have given him this rough treatment. They would have been hard kids,
Yeah, I've always thought that. People get in a fight. Some people are wrong and they like throwing their fists around and stuff. But you've got to be like a particular, you've got to be a particular type of like loose cannon to just stick your head in there.
Yeah.
Well, that's not my first instinct.
Yeah,
to stick my head right in there. It's sort of punch or kick and run away. That's how you know he's tough, because he gets his head right in there.
I like a good headbutt.
Used to live in Scotland.
There you go. You see. I mean, he was a bit of a character, old Zinedine. I mean, Marcello Lippi remembers an occasion when managing him at Juventus, saying that he was leaving a restaurant at 11 p.m. This is Lippi, and he said he saw Zidane playing football with people from a neighbourhood where he had Algerian friends, and he said, what are you doing out
they
this
just
time?
Bumped into each other.
Yeah.
Well, and he said, what are you doing out this time of night? And he said, I like playing with my friends. I told him, you're right, it's wonderful, but make sure you don't go to bed too late. He was quite he remembered his roots. Zidane. You know.
I don't remember mine.
No.
I tried to lose mine as soon as possible. So it's a sort of extra.
Yeah, well, they kicked you out after all.
Well, yeah.
But in '98, after the World Cup, obviously we'll talk about '98. But he did say afterwards, winning the World Cup, he said, like all children in our neighbourhood, we played our own World Cups. And I ended up taking part in a real one. I will always remember that, the times me and my neighbourhood friends had our own little World Cup, and he said in a way I was representing them. So he feels a deep connection with the people from the neighbourhoods and the suburbs of Marseille and whatnot. But let's talk about France '98, which is when he put himself into French folklore. In fact, World Cup history books,
That lovely pair of 1998 Adidas Predators as well, didn't he? That great boots they were.
Was he not? I thought he was...
No, he's Predators. He's Predators, man.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Because later on in his career, he started wearing the gold Predators, didn't he?
Yeah, okay, yeah. What a player. I mean, he was the real creative force in that side. I mean, they were a fantastic team.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Got sent off there as well, didn't they?
Well, again, that's where I think some people weren't so aware of that sort of destructive side. And against Saudi Arabia, was it, in the group stage?
Completely needless, yeah.
They're winning, they're comfortable, and he stamps on a player.
Yeah.
How did you... Again, it's like Wayne Rooney, you're 2-0 up against Montenegro.
Yeah. Flashpoints. I think Zizou had 14 red cards throughout his career.
I think
quite a lot.
Isn't it?
I think that's one more than Vinnie Jones. I think so, yeah.
He,
or is it equal?
I think, didn't he get a real chance with the French national team when Cantona was banned for kicking that fine?
It's possible.
Yeah,
That's some volatile players.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I think he kind of took over from Cantona, but Cantona didn't really fill the boots of Platini.
Yeah. Cantona was hugely ostracised by the French national team anyway. But the thing about Zidane, it's interesting that you're touching upon his ruthless streak and his temper and it's undoubtedly, I mean, everyone listening to this show is going to know, they're going to have seen him play, but he was a very, very hard man, but he's also like an epically graceful player.
Oh, God, yeah.
He was almost like two extremes coming together. Yeah. This hard, tough, never get knocked off the ball, but also so light on his feet, so graceful. And one thing, we mentioned Messi at the top of the profile, sort of maybe he'll go on and write his own story, but Zizou genuinely two-footed. Genuinely. You couldn't say that about Messi, and you couldn't say that about Maradona either. They're both very left-footed. Yeah. Zizou's perfectly balanced.
And he had that. It is all about the balance as well, because he had that glide to him where it would look like he was just ghosting past players.
Deceptively quick.
Yeah.
His legs were like sine waves, because it was like you'd sort of look at a step over from Zizou, and then you'd look at a step over from somebody like, I don't know, Cristiano Ronaldo. And Cristiano Ronaldo's all about the stabbing of the feet and the quick. He would just bamboozle players to a certain extent. He was adroit. He was graceful. He was
like,
just
graceful's the word. Isn't
it's like
it?
a hypnotism.
Yeah, I think so. It was just like he would just have such great balance. He'd take balls down from pace, height, whatever, and they would be at his feet and in front of him. Yeah. And then I wouldn't say he'd be off, because he wasn't all about pace, but he was just. Oh man!
There's that famous bit of control. I think it's for France. Where someone bullets the ball across field, well too high, well too fast, and he just leaps and just about gets it on his chest. And within like half a second, it's at his feet. He's away again. Honestly,
he is like a computer player.
Yeah,
you know, a computer player. The ball comes over and just goes and sticks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like he'd catch the ball with his feet. In fact, I'd like to see his feet to check they're not just another pair of hands.
He's a master of the drag back. Absolutely perfected the drag back as well.
Oh yeah,
that move is permanently associated with him.
But one of the funny things was people often used to say his heading ability wasn't great. In the World Cup final, 2 goals with the head.
and one of them was a great header. One of them
through the legs of Roberto Carlos.
Yeah, that one didn't have any real pace on the cross either.
Yeah.
He really generated the net muscles.
Well, he headbutted it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
But that was probably the pinnacle of his career. I mean, maybe a moment we'll come on to at Real Madrid, but the World Cup '98 was his really, as was 2006, which we'll talk about in a brief moment. But that World Cup, I just think that a few people didn't quite know him at that point. Yeah, they did for Juventus, but perhaps they thought he's not that type. He can't win a World Cup.
Well, this is the way football often goes. You have people who love football and they watch different leagues. Don't forget, 13 years ago in this country, especially, it's a different play. Football's a different play. The internet's not out properly yet.
That's right.
The World Cup still is to a certain extent, but used to massively be about you see these players consistently for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, even now, a lot of football fans won't see players like Zlatan, for example, unless they play in the Champions League because they won't watch foreign leagues. Yeah. So this is a perfect example of Zidane coming into the fray because France are at home and they're obviously going to do something in this tournament. And Zidane is the absolute fulcrum of that team, and everything that he does, everything they do, revolves around him. And I just wanted to go on to say that people also sometimes talk about Zidane as like the perfect number 10. To me, he was a bit more than that. Yeah. He wasn't just a number 10, because you think of a number 10 as being the creative fulcrum, as I said, and the playmaker, but you also think of him as being drifting in and out of games and being there when you're doing well. But Zidane would take the game by the scruff of the neck. If you weren't doing well, he'd be dropping deep and getting the ball. He'd make things happen.
But also, he'd often play on the left side of a diamond. He's often slightly on the sort of left centre, I suppose. I think people think of him just behind the front too often, or as a central player. I mean, he was more central. That he was obviously not a left midfielder.
But he would always drift inside, though.
Yeah, exactly. So France '98, he was absolutely wonderful, and the match that he missed against Paraguay, France really struggled to beat Paraguay, and it was a golden.
Well, they always looked to him. It was a case of, from memory. It's a long time ago now, but from memory, a lot of the time it was a case of get your head up and look for Zidane, give it to him.
But it's the sensible way to be, isn't it? When you've got a player like that. I think that's why it's so unusual that Messi isn't used in a similar way for Argentina at the moment. If you've got a player that good, he's got to be your go-to guy, And
also, don't forget, they were almost playing like a strikerless formation. Had Givarch up front,
who was supposed to be a striker,
but he wasn't really. Right. Yeah, I mean, he was all the best.
He was supposed to be a footballer.
Yeah. It's interesting. He was also used.
Because by the time 2000 came around, they had Henry and Trezeguet, and that seemed like perfectly natural. But back in the '98, it wasn't the case.
Euro 2000, I thought he was as equal, maybe a touch better actually than what he was in France '98. I thought he was magnificent in that tournament, and we all knew him then. He was an established player, and he still stepped up. Sometimes maybe the pressure, none of that. He just continued quite happily. On top of the world where he was, and a great free kick against Spain in the quarter-final, and then against Portugal in the semis. It's the last couple of minutes of extra time. They've got a penalty. Portugal have had 3 men sent off for protesting. It's all crazy.
Yeah.
Now a lot of players, that's a lot of pressure. Some would maybe stick that wide, but not as that top corner.
Was zen-like calm, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the penalty he scored in the final in 2006 off the crossbar. Well, perfect chip dinked penalty.
He dinked a penalty.
Yeah, in
the World Cup final.
Yeah.
I mean, for crying out,
he's got
his last ever game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
well, anyway, we've got to talk about Real Madrid before that one. In 2001, he did join Real Madrid, and he was the ultimate Galactico. I think we can agree there. Interestingly enough, apparently at an awards dinner in Monaco, there's a little story that suggests that Florentino Perez, he was there, wrote on a napkin and passed it to Zidane, "Do you want to play for Real Madrid?" Because he couldn't be seen as tapping him up and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know whether that's true, but I'd like to believe that Perez would even use the napkin to sign a player.
Yeah.
But he went to Real Madrid. And
do you reckon they sort of went to Juve and went, well, I haven't got to pay for him because I've got this now?
And he's already signed it. So
he was a part of that Real Madrid side that included the likes of Roberto Carlos, Raul, Ronaldo, and then Beckham.
Hamden Park.
Champions League final.
Yeah.
It's Hamden Park. It's Bayern Leverkusen. It's a volley. It's a goal. They won the Champions League. The only time he won the Champions League, I always think of him because he played in so many finals. He only won the Spanish League once, I think, Madrid as well.
Yeah.
You can tell he's a great player. If you need any more confirmation, by the key footballing moments you're talking about are finals in major competitions,
and they're huge contributions to them as well. That volley.
Yeah. Describe the goal, Carlos. sort of does a kind of desperate sort of cross sort of over the top of his head and then in the middle, and then to be fair, he's got a bit of room. Yeah. He's got a bit of time. He doesn't need that time. He's going to take it first.
The ball touches the cloud.
Yeah. I've got a bit of time, so I'll probably just volley it with my left foot shoulder high into the top corner.
His foot was higher than his head, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
It was like Bruce Lee-esque. If Bruce Lee played football, that's the kind of stuff he would do.
Yeah,
it was just.
It was like he took his leg off and used it as a big bat. Get
that in there.
It's absolutely glorious stuff. And they won the Champions League. World Cup 2002 was a bit of a write-off for France, and Zidane was out for the first 2 games of the tournament. Euro 2004 they fared a little bit better, reaching the quarterfinals.
My favourite bit of skill was from that tournament
with a hit back heel flick.
Yeah. Henry shot corner, and he managed to judge the bow so incredibly. And we're talking about him volleying stuff on the back of his heels, which is apparently in the eye, and he sort of flicks it with his heel over the top of a defender.
He was at the front post, wasn't he?
Yeah. Flicks it over the defender that's coming to cover Zizou, and then Gallas fucks it up. Like a point blank header for Gallas, pretty much, and he messes it up.
Was it against Switzerland in the first round?
I can't remember, but it was just.
He scored a penalty against England and
a free kick as well. Yeah. Again, showing the coolness. Remember, he threw up just before that penalty.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
but he later said
he did a sick.
But he later said that's because he was exhausted, not because he was.
Oh yeah,
It wasn't.
Don't worry about that.
It wasn't nerves, right?
Yeah. No way. Now
he is Buddha.
You can imagine him being sick and then like one of the England players going, "What, you a bit nervous?" No, I've already won this.
Yeah.
Why?
I've just had a kebab at half time.
Rooney just bending down eating it, thinking it'd make him better.
Yeah, probably would. Probably I'd try it.
The image of Wayne Rooney eating.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Sick off the floor. Anyway, it's not the worst thing he's done.
We've still got World Cup 2006 to talk about. We've got there. Zidane said it would be his last hurrah, and my goodness, France didn't start very well in the tournament. They got better as they went on, and Zidane in the quarter-finals against Brazil. I mean, that was one of his best performances for me that I enjoyed. You talked about the step-overs earlier. He was like that Brazil classic sort of Samba stuff to them. They couldn't touch him.
It wasn't only that, it was like the amount of times he would receive the ball almost like with his back to Brazil's goal on around the halfway line with a couple of players around him, and it would literally be like 1 or 2 touches he'd be away.
It's like a pirouette every single time, wasn't it? And he suddenly found himself behind the defender. It was like, what the hell?
Lest we forget, this was only 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, and he was 34.
He won the Golden Ball that tournament.
He was the best player in the world still at 34.
Yeah.
And when he retired best player in the world.
He set up the goal for Thierry Henry in that game, didn't he?
Yeah.
And we've spoken about this before. It's a really weird stat though. You've got to remember as well that Thierry Henry is France's all-time leading scorer. Zidane's one of their best ever players. That's the only time they ever combined for a goal.
Amazing.
Good time to do it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of his heading, he almost scored a header in extra time
in the World Cup final.
Yeah, and Buffon
that should have been the moment, shouldn't it?
Yeah,
that should have been the big hurrah. But Buffon was.
Do you reckon after that he thought, "What am I going to do now?"
I know.
That's gone wrong.
It needs to be about me somewhere.
Well, just a brief mention in the semi-final again against Portugal. They got a penalty. Well, we need this scored.
Yeah.
It's a tight game. Well, big man, boom.
Yeah, his record for France in terms of goal score is not far off 1 in 3. I think he's got 30 odd in 100 and something games, isn't he? Yeah.
He also, when he scored that penalty in the final against Italy, he became one of only 4 players alongside Hurst, Vava, and Pelé to have scored 3 goals in World Cup finals.
Yeah.
But it's just.
There's that really iconic photo, isn't there, of after the sort of the Materazzi
he's wearing
thing.
the 10 shirt.
He's walking away from the World Cup, just sitting there.
It's one of the great sporting images.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just he had a very storied international career, which is one of the things that makes Zidane one of the true greats, because his story is up there with his ability, and he fulfilled so much of those things, and it's got a really dramatic sort of kind of timeline to it. But I remember just being heartbroken by it at the time. It just feeling like no, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, but I also remember thinking that is fucking punk rock as fuck.
It's nutting away his career. Back.
It's one of the greatest. It's one of the great iconoclastic moments. I mean,
absolutely.
How many other players, if they'd done that, would be that would have tainted their but.
It wasn't, and Le Monde famously had that. I don't know if it was a headline, but a sports story saying, they sided with him, they backed him, and if you think about the craziness of that, if you think I know it's stupid to compare England and France in that way, but if you think of a newspaper having to run a story about a player effectively costing a team the World Cup and then siding with that player, it's crazy. But he the reason I like that moment in a way is because it wasn't doing it to make it all about him. It was a purely instinctive thing, and he was such a natural footballer. You almost can forgive him making such a natural decision to do that because it was off the spur of the moment. Well, on one hand, you can't have moments and flashes of brilliant inspiration which win you games and win you tournaments and win you massive trophies that will never be forgotten because of his instant inspiration. Yet at the same time, not have the other side of the coin with this instant.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Poor decision making off the top of his head.
Was it not incredible in his last
game? It's instinct, isn't it? It's an instinctive decision.
In his last game, which is the World Cup final, there's no bigger game in football. You see everything about the man. You see the coolness to dink a penalty and the sheer gall and the sheer confidence and all that sort of stuff. The guile, all the other things that we've mentioned.
And he was clearly the difference maker on the pitch as well. You could feel that it was going to go France's way. It felt that way.
And you see that side of him that since playing for the youth teams in
and the
France,
ref didn't see it. The ref didn't even see it.
Well, there's conspiracy theories that suggest he should have never been sent off because they reckoned that was he the first player to be sent off by a fourth official?
Yeah. Retrospective.
I remember seeing it happen and just thinking, like the maths in my head going, oh, he's got to go. He's got to be sent off.
Well, but what is that kind of? It wasn't a footballing decision to do that, was it? It was kind of like just someone said something.
We can't have that. You know, we can't have that. We can't have that in a World Cup final. We'll be made a mockery.
He's got to go. No, he had to go. I don't deny that. I think, in a way, I know what you're saying about the retrospective thing and the video or the fourth official, because the fourth official undoubtedly got the attention of the referee. You still had to be sent off. You can't do that. You can't smash your head into someone's solar plexus.
Whatever they've said about your mum.
Yeah, even if it is Matrix.
Do you think it would have hurt that one?
Oh, come on.
Why did I have a headbutt?
Look at the way Materazzi went down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Although he did go down.
Stood up
he did go down like wrestlers go down.
Top heavy.
I'm spreading my back to ease the pressure. Like I've done this many times before.
It was an absolute beauty, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
No, De Jong.
Yeah, that's right. So since retiring, he's, as you say, Pete, he's playing for Real Madrid veterans team, which I'd pay to see. Organises charity matches with Ronaldo and a UN ambassador as well, goodwill ambassador, raising a lot of awareness of poverty. He does a lot of charity work.
Yeah, he does. And usually it's always organising football matches, it seems, and playing in football matches and touring like Canada and stuff for cancer.
Oh yeah, it goes all over the place. You know, doing some wonderful.
My friend who's a football journalist based out in the Middle East once interviewed him at a press conference, Zidane, and he said that I was asked him a couple of questions, seemed really moody, and initially I was a bit annoyed with him. Then I thought, well, why does he want to speak to me? Why would someone like him want to speak to someone like me? So I sort of forgave him.
That's big of him.
Around the last World Cup, it was there was that big I can't remember which company it was. I think it might be Givenchy or something. They did that photo shoot with Maradona, Pelé, and Zidane.
No, it wasn't Givenchy. It was Louis Vuitton.
Oh right, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Great footage of Zidane and Pelé playing table football.
Yeah,
absolutely marvellous. We must say as well that he's only one of two men, along with Ronaldo, to have been crowned World Player of the Year 3 times. And he was given the award for the best player in the Champions League's kind of brief history, I suppose, or 20 year or so history, and voted the UEFA Best European Player in the last 50 years. We'll end with a quote from the great Marcello Lippi, who coached Zidane. Juventus. He says, I think Zidane is the greatest talent we've known in football for definitely the last 20 years at least. And yet he never played the prima donna. I am honoured to have been his manager.
Come in.
Here comes Zinedine.
That is the end of one of the most enjoyable profiles.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, he's also the star, main protagonist of Zidane, the 21st Century Portrait, which is a film very artistically sort of art house film.
Set up lots of different cameras, didn't they? So 4 or 5 on it, something like
17.
that. Yeah, 17 cameras.
Just filming
4 or 5's not many at all.
Throughout a game. It's
for Real Madrid.
Yeah, soundtrack by Mogwai as well. It's worth checking out.
It's all like real time, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really
just follows Zidane.
It's called Zidane, a 21st Century Portrait.
Player cam should always be like that.
Yeah.